Manufacturers absolutely love filling niches these days, and Volkswagen is no different. It's already got a big range of SUVs and crossovers, but it felt that with the Taigo, well, one more couldn't hurt. It's actually based on the Polo platform, but it has a slightly more upright and sleek appearance. So if you're already looking at some of Volkswagen's other SUVs like the smaller T-Cross, why should you pick this car? That's what we're going to find out today. As we've already mentioned, the Taigo is based on the same platform as the Volkswagen Polo, and in fact it's very similar to the Volkswagen Nivus, which is sold in South America. It's somewhat longer, wider and taller than the Polo, so it does have slightly more presence, but it features a slope-back roof which is really on trend at the moment. If you're looking for a slightly quirkier design compared to the regular Polo, we reckon the Taigo could be a really good option. The Taigo's interior is a bit of a blend of new Volkswagen and old Volkswagen. For instance, the screen up top has a surround and it has separate functions which feels a little bit from the older generation of cars. However, down the bottom here we've got a new touchscreen for the heating and ventilation controls, but that is actually a little bit fiddly. Lower spec models get physical dials and buttons for the heating and ventilation, and it's a shame that they didn't just keep that because it's so much easier to use on the move. However, the main steering wheel is nicely shaped and it also has nice proper functioning buttons, unlike the touch sensitive ones that we've seen on the new Volkswagen Golf, which are very fiddly to use on the move. So it's good that they've kept things old school in this area. Elsewhere, things are good. There are some nice plastics up top, some rubberized materials. Though low down, things do get a little bit scratchy. These seats, however, are nice and supportive and actually quite heavily bolstered, and the visibility that we've got is all good too. There's also a digital dial setup ahead of you with configurable modes to show out a variety of different information. Overall, it feels like quite a nice blend of new and old school. It's just a shame that those touch sensitive buttons remain down there because, well, they're just quite a weak point really. In the back of the Taigo, you've actually got a decent amount of space, and surprisingly, given that raked roofline, headroom is pretty good too. Now the seat is in my position, I'm just under 6 foot, and as you can see, I'm doing pretty well for room for my feet. But for my knees, it's a little bit tighter. So if you often do have taller passengers, you may want to look at a slightly larger car. Storage is a bit of an issue in the back here because apart from 2 small seat back pockets and 2 small door bins, there's nowhere else to put all of your things. There's not even a central armrest with cup holders. But that is a way that manufacturers help to drive down the overall cost of a car. So you can't really fault it overall for that. In the middle we have, however, got 2 USB-C charging outlets, which is handy for keeping your mobile devices topped up on the move. Open up the Taigo's boot and you'll find that you've got 440 litres of load area to play with, and in fact that's more than you'll get from the Volkswagen Golf, which shows that practicality really is at the forefront of the Taigo's priorities. There isn't any adjustability in terms of the boot floor, it's just as it is. But you do have quite a low load lip, which means that getting heavier items in isn't going to be too tricky. There's also one small pocket down the side to keep loose items all together. Just as with the Polo upon which the Taigo is based, this car is all about making driving easy, which is why the 6-speed manual we've got in this car is very light and easy to operate, and the same can be said of the clutch, which is really, really light in its action. This makes it a car which is nice and easy to drive around town, and the steering, equally light once again, makes it nice and nimble and makes it easy to pilot when you're parking or when you're doing those shorter manoeuvres that often happen in urban environments. Now under the bonnet we've got a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine developing around 108 brake horsepower, which in fact is a slightly more powerful version of the 1 litre that you can get in the Taigo. There's also a slightly less powerful option. However, this seems to be the one to go for because it's got a good blend of economy. Volkswagen says that you should get just over 50 mpg, and performance too, because the turbocharged nature of the engine makes it feel quite flexible, and you've actually got some pretty good reserves of torque to tap into should you need to get some progress on the go. Again, like I said, because of this light 6-speed manual, it's not a difficult engine to utilise, and actually it gets up to speed in a good enough time. Of course, that focus here is on economy, it's not outright performance, but realistically this does more than enough, and it actually feels quite settled on the motorway, which is surprisingly for such a small capacity engine. We have got a little bit of wind noise being generated by quite an upright screen, and you are getting quite a lot of tyre noise but I think this problem could be alleviated by fitting a smaller alloy wheel. This car in particular is an R-line, so it does ride on larger alloys. Brakes good, they've got a nice decent amount of feel to them, and they bring the car to an effective halt, which is, well, to be fair, what you want from brakes. In terms of visibility, these pillars aren't too wide, so you don't have to worry too much about your forward visibility. And actually, despite that raked roofline and relatively postage stamp sized rear screen, the view out the back is pretty good too. It's nice and wide, and it's not too interrupted by the large rear pillars. The 1 litre engine can be a little bit gruff when you ask quite a lot of it, and if you do shift down a few gears, it can become a little bit gravelly. But again, this is a small capacity engine, so I do think that given that, it does pretty well. There is a larger 1.5 litre engine available on the Taigo, but I do feel like this 1 litre actually fits the overall package quite well. The whole car actually feels quite light. It's probably aided by this quite nimble steering, but it doesn't feel like you're dragging an awful lot of weight around with you, and that makes it feel a little bit perkier to drive than you might expect. One thing I will say is that the lane keep assist system in this car is quite an intrusive one, and when you're on roads, country roads like we're on today, it's constantly trying to bring you back into the lane, even if you are just near to the white line. It's easy to switch off, but it just feels a little bit over the top, particularly on narrow UK roads like this one. Even though it could be said that the Taigo is a car that nobody really asked for, it feels like a good addition to the Volkswagen lineup. It's got excellent levels of practicality, as we've seen, with a big boot that beats the Golf in terms of outright spaciousness. And inside, you've got a nice mix of fixtures and fittings, and though there are some poorer quality materials, you do have to remember this is a more budget-focused car. Add in an engine that isn't going to cost too much to run, and light and easy controls, and this does feel like quite a well-rounded vehicle overall. Even though it's got plenty of competitors, the Taigo is definitely a car that puts its head above and says, I'm worth looking at. Thank you for watching this motors.co.uk new car review on the Volkswagen Taigo. Now, what do you think of this car? Leave us a comment in the section below, and leave us a like if you have enjoyed this video. Plus, while you're here, please would you be able to subscribe to the motors.co.uk YouTube channel, hitting that bell icon so you're notified every time we put up a new video.